All right, so welcome to the PPF September meeting. Johanna King has a thumbs up, so good. And so welcome everybody. Tonight is members night. So we're going to have three members who are going to do a 30-minute program on their work. We're going to have Doug Rundle, Mark Germann, and Joe Whittington. Each of those people gets 30 minutes. And each of the presenters, I'll give you a notice when you get down to 5 minutes, so you'll know you're getting close. I'm sure people are going to have plenty of questions, so you might want to save a little bit of time for that. Okay, so a couple of announcements. Pat Rose wanted to make an announcement, so go ahead, Pat.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay, let's see. Okay, can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So Mike O'Brien, as many of you know, has been working hard on this Opal Creek project. As you know, 3 years ago, almost, well, to the month really, it was September of 2020, where all hell broke loose and Beachy Creek fire just exploded and it destroyed a lot of Opal Creek wilderness and a lot of Jawbone Flats where the forestry center, the ancient forest center is. And he's away camping in Eastern Oregon. So Mark asked if I wanted to go ahead and just make this a little bit of an announcement. So there's going to be a fundraiser on the October the 5th. And Mike has really been a huge part of this. It's an evening for Opal Creek. It's meant to be a fundraiser to raise funds for the restoration of Jawbone Flats. Many of you have been there, so you know what that used to look like. It's all burned down now except for one structure. And so the benefit, the fundraiser will be to raise funds for that and, to keep their education programs going. So if you're not familiar with the Opal Creek Ancient Forest Center, check them out online. All the information is there. They're a nonprofit group that exists for the purpose of educating people, especially children, about forest ecology and all things forest. So part of this, the reason that I'm announcing, he wants me to announce it to you here, is that several of us from PPF are donating prints that will be up for sale. I'm not quite sure if it's going to be an auction or just straight sale. There's Mike O'Brien, of course, will donate some pictures. Mike Osborne, Jim Congleton, Susan Turner, and myself. So there are 5 of us who are donating some prints to the cause. And so if you want to come to this evening for Opal Creek, as it says here, it's Thursday, October 5th, from 6 to 8. It's at the zoo, the World Forestry Center there. And it seems like a steep price, but you get food and drink along with the $60 per person ticket. And all of that is going to be, less the cost of food and whatever is going to be for the cause as well. So if you want to come to the event, the only way, unfortunately, to get registered for this is through this email flyer that they sent out. And I didn't want to send that out to everybody. So I'll say this: if you are interested in coming to the fundraiser to see some of your fellow PPF members and showing their pictures for sale, then contact me, or Mark, can they contact you? You have the invitation too.
Yeah, that's fine. You can contact me also.
For the link, and we'll just send you the flyer that has the registration link and so on and so forth. So I think that's probably the easiest way to handle it. So anyway, that's it. So it's going to be a worthy cause. And and just to put a bug in your ear, I'm also on Mike O'Brien's request, I'm writing an article also. Some of you know that I write occasionally for Oregon Arts Watch on the photography beat. This time it's a little off the beat of photography, although there's going to be a whole bunch of pictures of Opal Creek, again, from a lot of PPF members and others inside this article that I'm writing. And the article is basically going to be practically the whole history of old growth forests in Oregon, from the beginning, when they started chopping them down, to the Beachy Creek fire where they all burned down. Opal Creek Wilderness is highlighted, and some of you may know the name of George Attia, who was for years instrumental in saving Opal Creek Wilderness from the loggers. So anyway, check that article out. It's coming out next Thursday ahead of this fundraiser, so as to help raise awareness of this 3-year anniversary of the fire that destroyed everything. So anyway, on a hopeful note, the forest is recovering, as you'll see in the article and at this fundraiser through some of the pictures that people have been taking. Anyway.
All right. Thanks, Pat. All right, Al, you wanted to make a quick announcement?
Yes. Many of you probably know that the Photography Council at the Portland Art Museum for many years had lunchtime photography talks on a monthly basis. Ray Bittigan was president of the council for a long time. During COVID, that went to Zoom and then kind of on hiatus. It has since been reconstituted on a quarterly basis, and there is a lunchtime talk this Wednesday, the 20th at noon, in the trustee room in the Mark Building, which is on the 4th floor. And the presenter is Will Matsuda. And he's a younger Portland photographer who focuses on Japanese American culture, his family, and the environment. And I'll put the basics in the chat, but a lot of PPF members in the past have attended these talks, so I thought I would let everybody know they're happening again on a quarterly basis.
That's good to know. Thanks, Al. And then I'm going to make a quick announcement. I just want to remind everybody about the book project. You should have seen it announced in the newsletter that went out last week. We're getting a pretty good response to that. The deadline is September 24th, so that's Sunday at midnight. So try to get your photos in. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me or Tim, whose email is in that description of the book project. Okay, so we're doing pretty good on time. What we're going to do now is Bob Bergstrom is going to share this month's photo challenge. So go ahead and share your screen, Bob.
Okay. Let me share my sound also. So this month's topic was the dance of life. We have 21 people who submitted images, and it takes about 15 minutes.
We're not getting sound, Bob. Well done, everyone. Really nice work. Great variety. I'm always impressed by these photo challenges and how many people respond and the quality of the images. Bob, do you want to say something about next month's challenge?
Yeah, thanks to everybody who contributed to this month. Next month's topic is memories of home. So it could be pictures of your home or somebody else's home or a bird nest or even Latvia.
All right.
Somehow I'm gonna have to get off of Zoom and come back on. I think it died.
All right. I'll stop your share if that's what you want. Okay. So it looks like it's still. Did your share stop, Bob? Yeah, looks like Bob is frozen. Okay.
I have a question.
Let's
You get a chance.
go ahead, Don.
Yeah, I raised my little hand. On the monthly photo challenges, can they be any picture or does it have to be taken within that month?
It can be anything.
Oh, bummer. I had my pictures ready and at the very end I looked and I'm like, oh my God, it's monthly.
Yeah, you should let me know. But
Okay.
yeah, it can be anything you want as long as it's even close to the theme.
Right. Okay, so it doesn't have to be in that month. Okay.
That's right. That's right. Good that you clarified that. Someone else might have had that question. All right. So let's go ahead and get going with our 30-minute programs. We're right on schedule. Doug, you're up. So, Doug Rundle, if you would like to share your screen. All right, we see it. We can't hear you, Doug. Doug, I'm not hearing you. I'm asking you to unmute.
See, unmute. Can you hear
There
me
we
now?
go. Gotcha.
Okay, sorry about that.
Right.
Let me see if we can. I don't know why that slideshow didn't load, but there we go. It'll take just a second. So my name is Doug Rundle, and for those who don't know me, I've been with the Portland Photographers Forum for about 5 years. I served on the board in 2020 and 2021. And this is my first presentation of any length. I've shown one or two images at a time in various times over the years, but I'm very excited about being able to do a longer presentation today. And so I'm honored to have a chance to do that. And I hope that you enjoy seeing my work. By way of background, I started my photography journey back in high school, photographing with a Minolta SRT 101, shooting usually Tri-X film, and processing the film and making prints in my father's basement darkroom. He and my brother were also photographic enthusiasts, and so I was fortunate to have a darkroom right in our home. But like I said, I did a lot of Tri-X, so black and white, developing mainly friends and family and adventures. So back then I was mainly photographing people. But I began, later, thinking about photography in terms of an expressive medium, probably starting in about 2007, when I got my first digital SLR. Also got my first digital printer that year. And, from that point on, my subject matter was usually nature and landscapes, outdoor scenes, and occasionally other subjects of opportunity that would come along. I make images primarily for myself and my own enjoyment and satisfaction, but I'm always glad when others see something in my photographs that resonates with them. I've sold prints of several of my images, and I've also lent my work to the promotion of several conservation causes. So this slideshow that I'm going to be presenting is really a retrospective of the last 12 years primarily. So I think it gives a nice sampling of my work over that period of time, which is what I would consider sort of my most focused and serious time for my photography. This first image is not from the last 12 years, it's a little earlier. This is actually from 2007. And this was, I've included this because this is one of the first images that I made very intentionally and with what I felt was a very expressive or artistic content. And this is an image of Pigeon Point Lighthouse in California. And I remember this picture very specifically because when I made this image, I was very conscious of the subject, of the composition, of the weather, and envisioned an image that would be very graphic and very that would look very much like this in black and white. And so when I was able to create this image and edit it, and at the time I was shooting JPEGs, I didn't know what a RAW file was, and I edited it in Adobe Elements and printed it on my new printer. And I was very pleased that I got something that was very close to what I had intended. And so this is, for me, kind of a landmark picture that in my mind sort of marks the beginning of my more intentional photography. Let me see if this will proceed here. There we go. So as we proceed through the slideshow, I will make occasional comments on particular images, but for the most part, I will let the photographs speak for themselves. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask as we go along. But if we start to get short on time, I may ask you to hold on until the end in order to get through the whole set of photographs. I'll speak a little bit about my personal vision for photography. I make photographs of subjects that speak to me, and I try to create images that are engaging in subject and composition, and if I'm really good, also convey something of the feeling or the mood or emotion that I felt at the time I made the exposure. My post-processing is always in service to this goal and nothing further. And in this sense, I'm very much in the so-called straight photography tradition. I love looking at the images that other photographers have made and have a very large book collection to that end. And I've been probably most influenced in my work by Edward Weston and Brett Weston, Paul Strand, Ansel Adams, Richard Garrett, Morley Bear, Henry Gilpin, and contemporary artists including John Sexton, Charlie Kramer, and Michael Fry. So if you're familiar with any or most of those photographers, then you know that they're, you can probably see some parallels in my work.
Doug, could I ask, this is Jonathan, can I ask, what was it about their work that you responded to?
Just the feeling of the photographs, the way that they are able to convey more than the documenting of the image. It's sort of that, that third dimension. Photographs are two-dimensional, but if you're able to add a third dimension of impact, emotional or mood to an image, that's what struck me about those images. This image here is interesting to me because when I went to a workshop with John Sexton and Charlie Kramer in the Eastern Sierra in 2015, and we were each asked to bring about 10 images to share with the group as part of the process of getting to know each other and the type of photography that we do. And out of the 10 images that I brought, I don't remember what the other ones were, but this one, when John Sexton was walking around and picking them up and looking at them, he picked this one up and said, well, this is interesting. And at that point, I felt like I'd won the workshop. So this is another sort of hallmark image for me in that sense. About a third of my images are in black and white, and about 2/3 are in color. And I don't have any trouble moving between those two types of images. In the way I see photographs, it's usually very clear to me, or the way I see, images, subjects for photograph, it's usually very clear to me if it's going to be black and white or color. And so I enjoy making images of both kinds.
So Doug, how do you decide if it's going to be black and white or color? What's that
I think
process
it's
like?
Yeah, it's a matter of, I think black and white images, it's usually a combination of light, tone, and texture that speaks to me and indicates the photo has a certain graphic quality that would work well in black and white. Whereas for color in my mind is often the subject itself. And so, I can probably point out some examples where I've printed in color and the image would not be interesting in black and white. I think this is a good example of an image that works in color, but wouldn't work in black and white. This is a scene east of Yosemite in an area called Lee Vining. This is Lee Vining Creek. So just sort of east of Tioga Pass in Yosemite, if you're familiar with that area. But to me, this image captures a mood of fall with the colors, the kind of the muted sort of pastel look to the scene. And I think it's an interesting photograph because of the color. So color is really much of the subject in this picture.
I'm a newcomer here, but I have to say, I think your composition is so strong. I feel like most of your images would work black and white or color. I really respect your compositions a lot.
Oh, thank you very much.
I agree with Kathleen, Doug. You have excellent facility with both color and black and white, and very, very strong compositions.
Thanks, Pat. You'll notice that in this retrospective, the first half of the images I'm showing are mainly in California, Yosemite, and the Sierra Nevada, in that area, because that's where I lived before I came up to Portland about 6 years ago. And then the second half will be mainly the Portland area and the greater Northwest in general.
So Doug, how do you know when to click the shutter?
Well, a lot of these images, it's a very deliberate process where it takes me time to think about the scene and to set up the picture. And so I'd say 95% of these are taken on a tripod, and a lot of thought is given to the scene and how I want to compose it and how I want to expose it.
Regardless, you still need to know when to click the shutter.
Well, it's before the moon sets in this one.
That was evasive.
I'm thinking of your question, and I'm formulating a better answer.
250 words tomorrow night.
Yeah. Well, there's not usually a lot of action in my photographs. So when to press the shutter is not as critical as it might be in other photography.
Yeah, but still, like, you can move the camera up, down, to the right, to the left, change your focal length.
That's true, right? Yeah. And you know, what you're seeing here is sort of the best of. When I was making these images, I inevitably made several, you know, different compositions, and obviously the ones I'm showing you are the ones that I felt were the strongest.
I'm going to remember that comment. Color is a subject in itself. That helps me think about whether I choose color or black and white.
Right, right.
Yeah, and some of your pictures obviously work well in, both ways. I'm thinking of some of those aspen shots. I think those were aspen trees.
Right.
Beautiful, delicate, elegant looking white bark with the leaves. Some of those look like they would work well either way.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. In the case of something like aspens, especially if the leaves are backlit, if you're doing it in black and white, it makes a really nice tonal contrast. I'm just going to pause on this image for a moment. It's one of the first images I made after I got to Portland, and it's still one of my favorites. This is, of course, the famous maple tree in the Japanese garden, but I took it from an angle that most people don't photograph it from. If you go about 90 degrees to the right, there's sort of a classic view of this tree that most images you see are taken from that perspective. But I like this perspective better. There's something about the way the tree flows, the motion to it, that I really like. So I've taken images of this tree from this angle in all seasons, and it's a lot of fun. This image, I was lucky to be an award winner with this image at this year's Oregon Society of Artists. And this is also one of my favorite images and an early image after I first came up here.
I really like the tones you get in your black and white as well. What kind of software are you using to convert?
I do everything in Lightroom.
Mhm.
So I use the black and white, module that you see right at the top of the Lightroom develop menu,
Right.
and just go from there.
Mhm. Just play with those sliders.
That's right. Sometimes I introduce just the slightest amount of brown tone, because I like that look of it. It reminds me of a toned, silver gelatin image. These images of the dunes that you're seeing are all taken in the same place, and this is in Florence, Oregon, just south of the bridge as you're leaving town that goes over the Susquehanna River. There's a wonderful dunes field, and I love going out there.
Wow, that's that same tree in winter.
Right.
Wow, lucky you got just snowy day.
Yeah,
That's
one of those
rare.
beautiful, rare days when you get that effect up there.
Doug, what's your, do you have a lens of choice for most of these?
I would say most of them are, and I always forget what the exact range of the lens is, but it's a zoom lens that I think goes from, oh gosh, something like 25 to 70, something in that range.
And Doug, do you shoot in RAW or JPEG?
Yeah, everything is captured in RAW and then processed in Lightroom.
Another question then, Doug, do you save all your images or just the keepers? You get rid of the other ones that didn't make the cut?
I saved them all. They're all in my Lightroom catalog. But to that point, I'm not a very, you know, I don't take a huge number of images. I tend to be, you know, where some people I know will take 100 images, I may take 10. It's funny, I think it's a leftover from film days when, you know, you were much more conservative about how many images you captured because you were using up your film at 36 exposures per roll. And I'm well aware that you don't have to worry about that anymore, but I just tend to not take a lot of pictures. 1 or 2 pictures of a subject is fairly typical, maybe 3 or 4, but that would be the most.
This one reminds me of litho film.
This image is sort of significant to me as well because it's obviously, you know, moving towards abstraction. It's a image of foam on the pond water at the Japanese garden, the fountain that's out front down at the parking lot level. And to me, this marked kind of the beginning of an interest in more abstraction in some of my images, and so I'm seeing that coming up more, and my eye is seeing more opportunities for sort of abstract compositions.
So you're at 5 minutes, Doug.
Thanks.
Yeah, that comment you made about, you know, being a holdover from the film days, you don't click the shutter that often. That kind of speaks to Giannis's question about when do you click the shutter? And the answer would be not often then, right?
I wish I'd thought of that. Yeah. That's good.
Doug, what percentage of your images would you say are tripoded?
Oh, the vast majority, probably 95% of them. The ones that are not are usually, you know, moments of opportunity when I'm traveling and I've just got, you know, a smaller pocket camera with me, or I just have my iPhone with me. But almost everything that I take with my, you know, my mirrorless Sony is on a tripod.
Well, we can see you have 3 tripods standing by right now.
That's right. Yeah, I think most photographers, after they've been at this for a while, if they're landscape photographers or studio photographers, they have more than one tripod. You never buy your first tripod and it turns out to be the one that you use forever. There's always a reason to buy another one.
Then you need a bigger one, then you need a smaller one.
Exactly.
Never stops.
That's right. This image is taken in Kapalua, Maui, sunset.
Well, I would say you click the shutter at just the right moment on all of these.
Well, thank you. I know that I'm running a little short on time, so I'm probably going to click through these a little bit faster just so I can make sure I get these all in before the end.
You have a couple of minutes.
Okay. These next 4, starting with this scene in Joshua Tree, National Park are made with a iPhone 14. So these are some examples of handheld images, handheld photographs that were just, you know, opportunistic.
Doug, are you using the native iPhone software or a off-market one?
Just the native software, shooting in RAW and then processing in Lightroom.
Thank you.
And this last one is taken at Rainier in the Paradise area just a couple of weeks ago. It was beautiful up there. And that's it.
Impressive work, Doug.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Stunning work, Doug. Is great. Thanks for sharing.
Any other questions?
I may hit you up for a print. A couple of those in there look pretty enticing
Thank you.
to get a print of.
Well,
Really
it was
great.
a lot
Thanks.
of it was a lot of fun to go through 12 years of photographs and sort of pick out a retrospective. It's kind of a good exercise. I kind of feel everyone should do that. It gives you a new perspective on your own work, which is kind of interesting.
Well, thanks for doing that, because it was nice for us to get a new perspective on your work.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
All right. So
I will
I'm going to
stop
stop your share. All right, good. You got it. Okay, so next up, we've got Mark Germann. So Mark, you set?
Okay, share.
Mhm.
Full screen.
Yeah.
That screen. Okay. Now
We see your file browser.
Click on
on what?
slideshow.
Right here.
Mhm.
Then I want to right click to stop it.
Mhm.
Okay, right click. Pause.
There you go.
Okay, let's see here. I'm just going to pause it on here and say a few things so that I don't have to look down at my notes and up at the pictures. My name is Mark Germann. I moved to Portland about 3-4 years ago from Massachusetts. And so a lot of the pictures you'll see here are from New England. And basically, my share with my photographs is to give a little history of how I started photography in my youth, and what were the things that influenced me along the way. The photographs that I'm presenting show my current completed show and projects, along with others in progress. I currently have work at Blue Sky in the drawers. I really appreciate PPF for allowing and Tim Dallas for getting me on board with that. That was awesome. And some of the photographs I have here are of a project that I worked on for my family, of archiving all my father's negatives and prints and mine as I photographed my siblings growing up and my nieces and nephews. I always had a camera with me since the age of 9, basically. So I became kind of the family photographer, and that's kind of how I started out. And I put all these photographs together for my family this summer and went to Maine, where my sisters live. and had a family reunion and a big slideshow. And it was something that I promised my family a long, long time ago when I inherited all the negatives, but never really get around to it. And so very proud of accomplishing that. And let's see. So the first 10 photos are from Blue Sky from the drawers. I'm just going to run that as a slideshow and pause it if possible. This slideshow is only like 9 minutes long. Hopefully this will. I'm just going to see if it's running the slideshow or if it do this manually. I guess I'll do it manually, which is fine. The pictures that were in Blue Sky all have to do with water or the as in this one ice, which is water. And I've had a lifelong fascination with ponds and rivers and lakes and the such. All my work, most of my work is now is 35 millimeter black and white and some digital. It had been 4x5 and other formats in the past. I always tell myself I'm going to put my camera on a tripod again, and I have several tripods like everybody else, but I seem to get lazy about that. So these are all photographs from Blue Sky. And finally, we get to St. John's, and the long travel over here in Portland. The next series of photographs are just a little bit of history. My father was a television repair and sales person, owned his own shop, and he was always doing something with photography, and that's where I got the bug from. Both my parents supported me a lot in my wish to pursue photography. They got me my first darkroom when I was 9. They were okay with me going to art school, or my mom was. My dad had passed away by then. And my father was actually a fairly accomplished amateur photographer, although he was very busy raising a family of 5 and with his own television repair business. But he was very much interested in the visual as well as audio, tape to tape and stuff like that. He was really died young at 52, but he was really a fascinating person. And so I want to acknowledge my parents for that. This is one of my father's photographs that I copied. It was just a little tiny 4x6 print. And he also set up a little studio setups and photographed us kids. And of course, being the youngest, I got, short changed on all of that usually.
Looks like he was very talented.
Yeah. I have his slides, which I haven't copied yet. By the way, this is Lowell, Massachusetts. This is the view from our house on the top of a hill overlooking the city of Lowell, and which is where I grew up until I was 8 or 9. But yeah, his slides are kind of incredible. So like I say, I started like really into photography of photographing things around me, things I love. My brother and my niece, my dog, my cat, my fish and my fish tank, taking a walk down to the pond and stuff like that. And then I, slowly graduated into like shooting black and white and like kind of just not being afraid of taking pictures of anything. I would go and my nieces had horses, and I would go and hang out and sit on the ground and photograph them, and and do the same with my nephews. So so that's kind of my journey as a photographer. And I never really knew exactly what to do with my stuff. I just did it. Somebody else in the said that they were doing this because they did it for themselves, and they love photographing things because they love photographing things. My cousins. Am I going too slow, too fast, or?
Just right.
All right.
Yeah, you're doing just fine.
Hey, Mark, like, who's printing these photographs? Is that
Me.
you or
Me.
you're
Yeah,
printing?
when I went to school for photography at Mass College of Art, and after I got out of Mass College of Art, I started working at E. Philip Levine's, selling photographic equipment to professionals, lighting, studio strobes, Hasselblad, Leica, Cinar, the whole gambit. And I left that, and I ended up working at a place called Palm Press, which was run by a man named Gus Caiaphas, and we did atelier printing. We printed for Harold Edgerton, Paul Eichovic, Brad Washburn, and we did the National Geographic's 100th anniversary show. And so my printing skills really got honed during that time, and I kind of lost them a little bit and came back, and I'm still, like every darkroom printer, I'm still a frustrated darkroom printer. You make some prints, you look at them, and they later, and they're like, why did I do that? So yeah, I print all my own stuff. I actually have a better print of this. Some of these are photographs of the actual photograph, and some are copies of my negatives. And I didn't scale them all properly for this show, so some of them, like this one's a little light, a little contrasty, but you get the gist of it. I grew up in a town in Massachusetts called Westford, and it was a small town. And it only had, when we moved in, it only had like 2,500 people. And it was still the tail end of the agrarian Northeast, small farm, apple orchard, little village type areas, interesting people. And then it, the suburbia hit, and it went crazy. Oh, by the way, that's the bike that this man is Harvey Theodore Parlee, a retired mechanic that had a bike shop in his cellar. And I used to go over there and hang out, and he and I built this bike. And out of all the little parts that he had hanging off the rafters and whatnot. This is an area of Westford that I used to walk through and pick blackberries and pick apples off the old apple trees. It was in the center of town. This one, actually, this is kind of light in this view here, but this was shot on 4x5. I was fortunate enough to live on a lake with my own little beach for 15 years in this town, and I just ate that up. I just took so many pictures when I lived there. Really crazy.
Sure, your family was thrilled to see all these pictures of themselves at the reunion.
Oh yeah, it was great. And I got a little website thing for sharing for them and stuff like that. And I do have a couple of sisters that don't really have internet, so I have to cut some DVDs. I have to get around to that. But when it was, younger, I was not shy about actually going into people's homes and just photographing them.
The thing that's amazing me about like your photographs, Mark, is that like each one of them seems to have a story, for you.
For me, yeah. Well, it's true. I actually have this weird thing is I look at the photographs, I actually remember most of the day or the afternoon that, and this is 40 some odd years ago and 30 years and 20 years ago. And it actually is a recall for me as to what I was doing then.
Well, that's what I was thinking as I was thinking, gosh, it's like there was some way to put these with your little stories, and they could be real short, not lengthy, but just real succinct little stories of like the things that you're talking about here and like the memories that they bring. I mean, it's so rich.
Thank you, Janice. Thank you. Yeah, I always had this kind of snotty feeling that I didn't like words associated with photographs. Like I almost can't stand it when I see title.
Mark, there's words on those photographs right there.
Right. Well, they're on, but I do write about them sometimes in my notebook. I do that, and so I do appreciate that. Maybe you're right. It's something that I should probably look into. That's me. And when I was in college, kind of a little bit post hippie, the hippie era had kind of was coming to a close in the late 70s.
Great image.
Yeah. This one is a little less contrasting, a little darker in the print. But I would go out walking, with my 4x5 on a tripod in these weird places and kind of guess my reciprocity, what it would be, and just kind of go with it. And this one did come out very well.
You mentioned earlier you shoot a lot with 35. You're not shooting 4x5 anymore.
I just recently acquired a 4x5. And I still kept my negative holders, but I haven't gone out with it yet. I really need to set aside some time in a place and slow down the process. This one was actually shot with a 4x5 with a flash bulb in a car. I would walk around with a bag of flash bulbs and an empty bag for the burned out flash bulbs with my 4x5, handheld. I went through that Ouija phase.
Right.
And it is a great format. It is a beautiful format. You make a print from a big negative, and it's just so rich. This again is handheld 4x5.
I'm guessing that's some kind of press camera or something like that.
Yeah, it was a crown speed. Well, it was a speed. I had both a speed and a crown graph. Same difference, really. Yeah, with my first one that I had a little scratch in the front lens, and it didn't seem to really affect much. And then I got a little bit better lens. It was all keyed to the rangefinder, and I used a little frame finder with a little, little pull-up frame that had the parallax correction. Like I said, I used to sell photographic equipment, so I had full access to having anything I wanted, basically, and which is not a good thing. So I really know how to use equipment, and it's kind of natural to me.
These last couple are very Arbus-esque
Oh, yeah. Well, one of the things I loved about Diane Arbus is she would say she didn't care what was happening around her, because when she looked down through the viewfinder, that was the world, that was it. Again, this one's a little contrasty on the image. It's not that way. This, I cannot get a good print of this. I keep making prints of it, and it's not always right, but I'm going to keep trying. That's my car. I had a 65 Ford Falcon that was given to me on my birthday by my brother. And that is the Blizzard of 78, if anyone ever wants to look that up. And we got slammed in Massachusetts. My intent when I photographed the town of Westford was to document the changing aspects of the town. Like I said, it was a kind of post-agrarian town that still had farmhouses and still had vestiges of agriculture, and still had apple orchards that were, this an apple orchard that wasn't too far from me that was starting to get overgrown. It's now a housing development. So, I knew that I knew that it was going to leave. I knew that it was going to be gone. And so I made sure to be there for it.
There's a storytelling photo there.
Oh, yeah. I still didn't get a good photo of the cracks. It's still the ones I shot, I'm not very happy with. I follow dogs around a lot, and animals. This is me, actually, not taken by me. I still do a lot of exploring. I think it's really important, as we age, that we keep active outside and see the world. And this is, coming over here from Massachusetts and New England, it's a different place out here, and it's very exciting for me. I had a little side business for a while, which I dropped when I started a family. I went into doing maintenance technician work. And so for the past 20 years, I haven't really had a photo business. And I do want to get back into that as a little retirement gig. This is from a glass plate, from a 5x7 glass plate. The printed image is less contrasty and a little more toned down. It's one of my favorite photos, even above and beyond my own photos, because of the, what it says, the bicycle really changed things for women back then. And I just love this image. Like I said, I kind of put aside the photo business. I started having a family, and this is my son, Chet. My son, Tom. And then the continuation of doing family photographs and trying to make them, interesting, explore. I explored with my sons, different places. Oops. Hey, get back there. This was actually last Christmas. We were able to skate on a little pond. And it was in the mid 30s, and it just started getting warmer up into like the 40s. And my sons decided to just take their shirts off. And so I moved out here, and I spent a little time in Hood River. This is looking towards the Dells. And I found this landscape out here just so incredibly wide and big and kind of confusing as a photographer at first. Some of these are now probably tending towards half film, half digital. My new fascination is with the Multnomah Channel. Like I said, I'm very interested in water. My partner Andrea and I have a mutual friend that has a house boat that has one of these houses that's on a floating pier. And I've been kind of exploring that area as well. It's a whole another problem of photographing, just because you're on kind of a flat surface.
So Mark, what is it about water that intrigues you?
Well, I've always spent my youth, growing up near a lake. I lived on a lake. I played hockey on a lake. I had a canoe. I just love the activity around water. I love the way that people that we interact with water. And it's fascinating to me, especially here, these big ships. I've never seen that before. You look on the Willamette, and there's a ship that's as big as a football field, and 100 feet high or whatever, and it's just very fascinating. One of the things I do want to photograph.
5 minutes, Mark. Sorry.
Yeah, so wrapping up. Are the clear cuts that we see out here. These are kind of some more recent ones. I got into a little bit of like some abstract kind of stuff, and been exploring the alleys on my bicycle, the alleys of North Portland. Really kind of a cool area to maybe do a group photo thing through there someday. And then I've been very interested in what I call the undeciphered, things that are not what they seem, and graffiti. So I'm just including a little bit of graffiti and undeciphered stuff at the end. A lot of this is digital because of the color. I do have two feelings about graffiti, and I know that one is it's defacing, and the other is the art aspect of it. And I think that might be it. Nope, last one. Oh, that's the last one. All right. Any questions?
That was fabulous.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Nice work. Thanks for sharing. It's great to see a retrospective of that kind of time span.
Yeah, that is a long time span, unfortunately. Yeah.
Anybody have questions for Mark or comments?
My comment is I really like the portraiture all the way through. Really interesting and different enough, at least in this group, pretty different. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna.
Yeah, even
I
your
did-
portraits of your family seem to have that kind of street portrait quality, which I thought was interesting.
The
Yeah,
portraits were some of my favorites too. I love the one, the man working on the bike. Did that take you quite a few to get you had his eye in focus and then the pipe in the lower
Yeah,
part of the,
I shot it with a screw mount Leica camera, and probably was on a tripod, and I just let him do his thing and took a few photos, and it might have taken a while, but I think I only took like 2 or 3 of him actually. So I was pretty lucky to get 2 out of the 3 photos look decent.
All right. Well, thanks a bunch, Mark. Appreciate you
Thank you.
taking the time to put all that together.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate everything that the group is doing here. It's been really fantastic.
That's always good feedback. Okay. So Joe, you are up.
Okay.
You're off the hook.
And just to remind everybody, the video of this meeting and a video of the photo challenge will be uploaded to YouTube tomorrow to our channel. And you can go back there and see all the past meetings from this year. All right. See your work, Joe.
If you can get it full screen here. There we go. All right. Well, I did one of these about a year ago, I think. So this will just kind of fill in what's been going on since then. So I'm working on kind of coordinating the photo outings for the club for the board. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Just for those. So my professional background is I'm a retired Navy intelligence officer. I guess my first work with photography on a daily basis was in the military. I had a 3-year tour with the CIA and worked as a North Korean and China analyst, and was the person that got the satellite photography and did the initial readout on those. I did that for 3 years, and then went back and did my 3rd Vietnam tour, and based out of Thailand. And they actually had it was on an Air Force base, and they had some photography courses available, and I took those. And then I taught for 3 years and lectured at the Navy postgraduate school. And one of the things I did was put together a handheld intelligence photography class. So we would take people in for a week and teach them that they capturing light with their camera, and they don't need to be afraid of it. And Friday afternoon they'd walk out being able to process and make prints. So it was a pretty fun deal to do. So other things, when I went off active duty, I worked as a marketing executive at Tektronix for 20 years, and then I started up my climbing and guide service, trekking service, and I've kind of retired from most of that. So anyway, so this is kind of what's been going on the past year. And the other thing that this kind of forces me to do is to complete projects that I've been thinking about for some time. So we'll finish up with the current project I just did. So one of the things I had never done was gone to the Japanese cherry trees down in Tom McCall Park. And of course, my most vivid memories of being in Tom McCall Park is when I worked as assistant to the curator at the Oregon Historical Society, and we moved the entire collection out of the Civic Auditorium into the Oregon Journal building. So if you're really, really ancient, you might actually remember that area being totally industrial before they tore everything down and planted grass. So, but I had never been to this area, and I highly recommend it. It is really cool. So yeah, it's just interesting, and there's interesting people and interesting scenes, and it's really nice. It's cloudy a lot in the spring, so you're not necessarily getting the great blue skies and things. So a little bit of color, that any color that you can get is kind of good. But all sorts of things going on, people taking pictures and portraits and things. So maybe next spring we'll do a photo outing down there. That would be really fun. One of the photo outings we did was waterfalls out in the gorge, and I think for our foreigners that have come in from California and Massachusetts, yeah, there's a lot of really cool stuff in the Northwest here in Portland, and it's very, very convenient. So the gorge and the coast and the mountains and all these other things. So just being able to, you know, zip out and take all these waterfalls is pretty cool. So I went out and just scouted out, make sure we could, you know where to park and things, and took some pictures there. And then the actual day of the outing came, and it was torrential rainfall. But we really had, I thought we had a really good time, maybe even more so because of that. But yeah, it's Oregon, so it rains sometimes anyway. So one of the other outings we did was that there's a fountain tour of downtown Portland that you can do, and they have printouts, and it's a little map, and there's like at least 15 fountains that you can wander through the area, and that was pretty fun. I think we had maybe 5 of us all together, but we had a lot of fun just wandering around. And it's interesting, most of these times you just drive through Portland and, you know, really don't look at stuff. And it was very interesting just to go through and see a lot of these things. It's possible that the 5 of us are the only ones that have ever seen this fountain, but but there's lots of interesting places in Portland. So it was very cool to go and practice our skills and get to know each other. So Portland's really very, very photogenic on all sorts of different kinds of things to see and do. I do projects for nonprofits. I usually have a couple of photos in the Japanese garden calendar. But my wife is a member of the First Presbyterian Church, and they do a lot of activities, and so I do quite a bit of photography for them. One of them they had was a fundraiser for a school in Africa, walking on the wildwood, and I'm also involved with the White Arboretum as well. But anyway, so I took photos for them that they used to commemorate the people's participation of the Walking the Wildwood. And it's kind of fun zipping around and making sure I was there when they popped out of the forest in various places. Another organization I'm involved in is the Pittock Mansion. And so I do hosting and guiding there as well. And they currently have an exhibit for a lady named Eliza Barkus. And Eliza lived to be 102 years old. She was born in 1857 and came out and was kind of a real estate entrepreneur and had a big garden and nursery and a whole bunch of stuff. But she kind of had a almost a factory process for doing paintings. And she won an award at the Lewis and Clark expedition in 1905. I think that's when that was. And so they have a really nice exhibit. Probably the largest collection of all of her paintings are on display at the Pittock Mansion right now. And it's very cool to go and visit this. So we had a lot of her paintings that I was taking photographs of, and then a lot of the medals and other things. This actually is a stamp that she used, you know, for stamping for promotional material. So I took a photo of that and then did the horizontal flip, and which turned out to be really cool. And so they used quite a few of these images on the promotional materials that they've used for the production. So I'd taken a wildflower class, and I had kind of honed my skills with my macro lens a little bit. So that turned out to be really handy. So anyway, this was one. This is one of the photos, or one of the paintings, excuse me, that actually hangs on a permanent basis at Pittock Mansion. By the way, if you haven't gone to the Pittock Mansion, it is Portland's treasure, absolutely. Especially for all you imports. If you haven't been there, you really need to check that out. And it's one of the best views of downtown Portland and Mount Hood, if you know if it's not obscured. So this is, her photos are very stylized, but so they had a lot of medals and things that she had won. So we were able to use our macro lens and black backdrop and practice the skills on doing that. And I really kind of like this shot. This was a makeshift studio thing. There was a chair and an easel and a jar and my black jacket, I think, and we shot those. But I really like the way this turned out. And so her paintings are very stylized. I assume she went around and looked at these things. This is not actually something, a shape of Mount Hood that you would see from any angle, but if you haven't seen it, who cares? So so October 14th, there's going to be an annular eclipse of the sun. Annular eclipse is where the moon doesn't quite cover the entire thing, which is actually kind of boring. I think this is really cool. So what we're doing, anyone interested, let me know. One of the PPF members is going down. So we're going to go and camp at Diamond Lake. And then for those that want to go climb, we're going to go climb up to the top of Tipsu Peak, which is nearby, and be there prior to 9:30. And actually the maximum eclipse is going to last about 4 minutes and 30 seconds, going right over Tipsu Peak. So it should be really fun, assuming that it's clear, which is not guaranteed in October, but if it is, it'll be really neat. So that's the plan anyway. So if anyone's interested in doing that, let me know. I'll go down and try to grab some campsites, and we'll be camping at the Diamond Lake campground.
Where is that on this map?
On this map, let's see, we can do the pointer. So here's Crater Lake, right here, National Park. We'll be right there, basically, right on the 4 minute 30 second path line going through there. So we're probably going to start climbing in the dark, which is what headlamps are for, and get up on the peak and have plenty of time. So I've ordered a special filter, so I have to go out before that and practice doing some photos of the sun with the filter on, with my 100-400 lens. And because if you don't have, it's basically sunglasses for your lens, and you can melt your sensor, if you put it up there and start taking pictures of the sun. So not everyone would want to do that, I'm sure. Anyway, so I'll practice that a little bit. So, but it should be interesting. I've done quite a bit of climbing down in the Crater Lake area. So those of you that have driven from Canada into Alaska may be familiar here. So I like clumps of things. Someone asked, do you save all your photos? I don't save all my photos, but I still have over 100,000 photos on my disk. So I've traveled a lot and been a lot of places. So I focus sometimes if I'm doing a briefing. Actually, I'm doing a presentation for the Oregon Nordic Club in November, I think it is, on my last trip to Antarctica that I went down with Art Wolf and did a photo shoot. So that was pretty cool. But most of the times I just kind of clump things together. So last time I did alleys and passageways, and not everyone liked it especially, but it's my presentation and I didn't get any special requests on this. So this time you're getting windows, doors, and enunciators. Okay, so Chicken Creek Cafe, if you're going from Dawson City to Fairbanks, you go through Chicken Creek. So it's kind of cool. Then we drove up the Alcan and circled all the way around to Stewart and Skagway, and then took the ferry back down to Washington. So that's a pretty amazing road trip, and I highly recommend that. Anyway, so this is the Chicken Creek Cafe and the doors and windows there. Nepal, Tibet, Bhutan, China, those various areas. They really do interesting things with their windows. Our windows here are really pretty freaking boring. But so, you know, and before Giannis asked, well, when do you know to click the shutter? Most of these photos are, at least China to Tibet, I'm you know, trying to herd 12 clients and make sure they don't get lost and wander away. But basically what I'm doing is I carry my camera where it's immediately available, and I'm just looking for things that look cool. And in the process of grabbing the camera and bringing it up, I'm making decisions on, you know, what exposure, what, you know, is it this shutter speed, is this depth of field, is, you know, whatever. So a lot of these are on the run and multitasking at the same time. So I think they have a lot of time and a lot of craftsmen, but they just really do interesting things.
Joe, where was that last door?
This is a window.
Well, where is that?
This is probably Nepal.
Where in Nepal?
Probably on the, I think maybe on the Annapurna trek. So I led treks in Khumbu and Annapurna and Mustang and other places. So this is probably, I think maybe the Annapurna area. Tibet, I would say, somewhere in Tibet, maybe on a temple. And I don't know, I just have a thing for scruffy cats. They're kind of cool. This is Tibet, at a monastery. Probably Nepal again. And one of the monasteries, I don't know if it's the Potala, might be the Potala in Lhasa. Another monastery in Tibet. I like the wind. The wind was blowing and blowing the ruffles up. It's kind of like upskirt kind of thing. Europe somewhere. This is for those of you that have spent any time in Kathmandu. There's a huge Buddhist temple there called the Botanath, and this is one of the side buildings next to Botanath in Kathmandu. So this very ornate and nice ladies. Mustang, probably Mustang in Nepal. Maybe Mustang again. Someplace in Nepal. Another Nepal. Not only, you know, they just like painting them and putting stuff out and things, and it's just interesting to see. This is in Paris, probably up in Montmartre area. Somewhere in Italy or Provence. But we don't have windows and doors here like this, you know, we're just so totally boring. Another monastery in Tibet. I think this is in Salzburg in Austria. But I just really love the three-dimensionality and composition of the carving on this door. Somewhere in Germany. They really like putting flowers and vegetation and things on their buildings. So. And I just really love the symmetry of this. this, I just really like the colors. It's almost an abstract kind of painting kind of thing. Probably maybe Venice. Venice. If you haven't gotten to Venice, you really need to go there before they close it to tourist, period. And what I highly recommend that you do there is once you escape the mass crowds in St. Mark's Square, go into the back alleys and wander around those tiny little narrow back streets there. And it's just really interesting. And the other thing is to catch the first water taxi at 6 in the morning when nobody is out. And it's an entirely different place. But there's lots of people there, and they're getting sick of it, and I don't blame them. I was getting sick of it just for the few days I was there. I had been climbing in the Dolomites, so I went to Venice before and after, and just spent time wandering around taking pictures, which is really a kind of a magical thing to do when you're not, running around with trying to keep track of a bunch of people at the same time. Germany somewhere, I think. Germany. They do like flowers. Little cafe, Germany. This was one of the little Christmas towns. We did a boat trip from Budapest to Amsterdam. And one of the stops was they have these Christmas villages, but anyway, I like the bear in the window, the drinking bear in the window. So. And it's just things that catch my eye and I find amusing. I did like the cats. Venice again. And here's one of the annunciators for the in the back alleys in Venice. So where you go push the button and rings up the people that you're trying to go visit. So there was a lot of interesting little things there. Kid had been kicking a soccer ball around by the church in one of the back plazas there, stowed his soccer ball for a little while. Another annunciator. And just stick your finger in the lion's mouth to call them up. And some of those have been there for quite a while. More Venice. So I was on a water taxi when I took this, and with probably my 70 to 200 lens, and I don't know if he was looking at me or someone else, but just from his hand gestures, I had a feeling he didn't really want his photo taken, but I just thought it was an interesting interaction that we had at a distance. Everything is moldering in Venice, which you would probably not be surprised about. Maybe some castle in Scotland somewhere. I don't know. Have to check.
Now, Joe, how do you keep these like organized, or do you?
I took a class from Mark Fitzgerald, and talked about how to keep things organized in Lightroom. So when I take a photo, when I take photos, I download them. I organize them by date, and then I put a tag on, put a title on whatever the shoot was or whatever it was. And probably if I live to be 150, I may actually go through and get them all keyworded. But I'll just go through and So, all these either have windows or doors, and then I can do a search and pull them all up. But you have to go through them, and you actually have to add the keywords to them. After you do that, it's Lightroom's, very handy. But again, you have to actually go through and add the keywords before that works.
Yeah, keywording isn't very sexy, is it?
There's lots of things to do, yeah, keywords kind of when you've like run out of everything else, I think. But if you want to have access, the other thing is my screensaver, this randomly goes in and pops photos on my screen. Which is really a marvelous thing, because when they're digital, they're just sitting on the file, and unless they're displayed, you don't see of them. But it's just kind of every once in a while something will pop up and they go, oh my God, that's really cool. And if it's really, really cool, I'll go track it down and try to, figure out exactly where it was.
You have 5 minutes, Joe.
Okay.
So then, Joe, you have all these like geotagged then, or?
Yeah, every action, I would think all of these would actually be keyworded, with a date and windows and doors, and I could go back. I have to all of these are I put them up on my website, which this is kind of an annual event. But I have to go back and actually I can put captions on them there. And
No, the question was like, are they GPS located, like with the.
No, I really don't do that. I know where they are. So for those of you that go to Paris, if you haven't been to the mosque, it is really cool. So this is a door from the mosque in Paris. This is actually one of a kind of a door handle kind of pull thing in Venice. I just really love this image. Another door at the mosque. It's in in downtown Paris, and it's absolutely magical. There's a really nice restaurant next to it. This is a surgeon's cabin in anyone local? Oh, surely you've been there.
The Dalles.
Fort Dalles. Yeah. So this is the museum at Fort Dalles. I just really like this image, just the tones and the contrast and things. It's so I highly recommend it. What we do, we'll go to the Dalles or the Hood River, and we'll stay 2 or 3 nights and just wander around and look at everything that's there. It's quite amazing what really neat stuff there is if you just kind of stop and spend a little time and go look at it. But yeah, I just really like this. And this is our last image. And you go to New York City, highly recommend the Highland tour walk area. They put kind of a raised walkway over in Manhattan, one of the areas in Manhattan. And this is just one of the really avant-garde office buildings, apartments, kinds of things for that. Anyway, so that's it.
Highline.
Highline, yep. Yeah, it's a nice walk, and there's some shopping areas, and you may have seen something called the Hive, which is kind of a geometric structure kind of things. Yeah, it's an interesting area. So I like going to, wandering around and taking pictures, and that's kind of why I kind of volunteered, saying I'd love to help coordinate the photo outings. Going out and taking pictures and with a bunch of folks, and especially someplace you haven't been before. I think everybody has some favorite place they really like to go, and it'd just be absolutely brilliant if we could all kind of step up and volunteer to take some of our forum mates with us and share that with us. So let me know if you want to do that. Any questions on anything?
Thanks for sharing, Joe. Does anybody have any questions or comments? feel like I
Thank you.
just
I
went around
think
the
it sounds
world.
fun doing these field trips.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to go out and shoot with other photographers and then find out that they saw something that you didn't even notice. Teaches you to start looking differently.
But you have a memory to die for, all the places you've been. I'm just amazed.
There's lots of places to go. And many I have not been to.
This one looks like a 50s Cadillac.
It does. It's really interesting. Yeah.
Well, thanks for putting the presentation together, Joe. Really appreciate you sharing with us. All right. Final chance for anybody to ask Joe any questions. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up.
Well, I certainly appreciated seeing all those doors and windows from a variety of cultures. That was a treat. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Yeah, yeah. And that's the magic of having the photography again is capturing those, and a lot of this stuff is going away. They're gonna some point they're gonna want double pane windows and all those other stuff, and some of that stuff's gonna go away.
Right.
I appreciate your sense of exploration, and it's something that I love doing. Even in the neighborhood, I'll go to some place that I've never been to in the neighborhood, and exploring and going down some place that you've never been. There's nothing like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks to all three of our presenters today. Really appreciate you taking the time to put some work together to share with us. Hopefully we'll see
Thanks, all you
everybody at
guys.
the meeting
Great.
next month. Go ahead. Who is that?
Oh, I'm just echoing you, Mark, saying how wonderful the presentations were. Appreciate it.
Everybody have a good month. We will be having our print share on the first Monday of October and our regular meeting on the third Monday of October. So hope to see you at one of those. Everybody have a good month.
Good night.
Good night.
All right.
Night.
Come for the eclipse.